Hi, my name is Cindy Rang with the Fabric Patching Ephrata, Washington. You can find us at fabricpatch.net. And today we're going to work on block number 5 of our Westport block of the month. All right, this is block number 5, so you kind of know the drill. This is the king size, and if you're making the king size, you're probably making 3 blocks of each one that we do. This is the twin size, which is also featured behind me, and we only have to do 2 of each one. And this is the block that we're making today. So if you've purchased the kit either from us or from maybe your local quilt shop, Hoffman put this fabric together for whirligig design so that it looks exactly like this, depending upon whether you picked the cool colors as shown here or the warm colors as shown here. So this is all fabric out of the kit, but I am sort of putting together a scrappy one also just to show you what that might look like. So we've already worked through the other blocks, and for this one is pretty similar to what we did last time, only maybe just a little bit easier because all we have is this little quarter square triangle block, and there's 4 of those, and then we're making this square in a square block, but we're doing it using the little rulers that she suggested. So she suggested these by Creative Grid. So this is your 45-degree square up ruler. We've used this a couple times. And then she also suggested the 90-degree ruler, but there's a couple different versions of those. We love to sell you rulers, and we certainly encourage the use of these rulers, but if you happen to have the easy angle rulers or the nifty notions, any of those, they're really all the same idea. I mean, this is not a new or unusual block, so if you already have a ruler that you can use, that would be awesome. I'm not sure which one I'm going to pick up, but let's go ahead and look at our fabric. All right, so as usual, you should have your pattern with you. We're doing block number 5, and you'll see that we're really only, again, piecing 2 blocks, just our little square and a square block and our quarter square triangle block. And you only need 3 fabrics. We have our background fabric, which they call fabric number 1. We have our kind of our little star fabric here, which they're calling fabric number 3. And then we have this one, which is fabric number 5, and this is the dark stuff that you're going to see in the centers here. And I also just want to remind you that this first part of cutting will be what you're going to be cutting if you are making the twin. And then this second part is going to be what you're going to be cutting if you're making the king, just because you'll be making 2 blocks for the twin, 3 blocks for the king. All right, we've kind of already done this before, so what you're going to do is you're going to cut your 45-degree triangles, and I'm just going to remind you again, we've started with our 2-inch strips, and she tells you in here how many to cut. I think it's like, I don't know, 32 or something. I think you need 16 per block. And then as you cut these, I'm going to keep cutting these, but these are the ones that are going to go right up here. And then down here, we're cutting our quarter square triangle. So once you've cut off the side, and then you're going to flip it, and you're going to flip it, and each time you'll line up so that you're lined up on the 2, and you have your little flat spot up on the top. And when you cut, move it first to make sure you've cut, and these end up in the center right here like this. And that's the same thing that we're doing with this piece. So we'll have 4 blocks like this, 4 blocks like this. I'm going to go ahead and cut the whole thing out, and then I'm going to go ahead and start piecing. And when you piece, this actually goes together pretty quickly. I'm just going to flip this over. So my 1/4 inch seam allowance here. Flip this over. So my 1/4 inch seam allowance here. Press to the dark so that then when I open this up and flip this over, also that seam, press the whole thing open, and I end up with my 1/4 square triangle block. I'll show you that after I've pieced it so that we can review that just for a second. Okay, so when they come out, they might need just a little bit of cleanup, and truthfully, you probably could go ahead and just take your scissors or your rotary cutter and cut off all of the dog ears, and your block is going to probably come out exactly the right size. That's kind of the nice part about pre-cutting all of your pieces, is that if you've used an appropriate seam allowance, then everything is going to come out exactly the way that it should. Your other option is you can just go ahead and clean up the edges just a little bit. You just don't want to go crazy and start really trimming anything down. This really should be a 3.5 inch block. And so when I line it up with my tiny little ruler here, this is just a little 4.5 inch ruler. I don't know if you can see, I am right on this diagonal line. I'm right on my corner here, and right where my 3.5 is, I'm right on the corner there, right on the corner there. Everything comes out so that I have my perfect points all the way around. Can you see that? Okay, so I'm going to line that up. Again, just double check. And again, hopefully you have a non-slip ruler or you've put a non-slip. And all I'm really trimming off is just these little dog ears here, and then what I would call shards. I mean, it's just the tiniest little bit of fabric just to give me a nice clean edge there. Then I'm going to turn it, and then I have my perfect 3.5 right on the edge here. I'm still right at that point, and that diagonal line comes right to the point there. Put my pressure. Oops. All right, and there we have our perfectly trimmed block or perfectly clipped block. It's really basically the same, it's just whichever you prefer. Okay, so once I've done that, I'm just going to lay these out where they go. Just want to show you the one that I haven't done. It just doesn't look right. We're going to trim that one. And then we're going to go ahead and piece these. Now I want to show you a little trick with these, because she had us, of course, pre-cut our little 90-degree angle blocks here. So I'm just going to show you a little trick. I'm going to take my center and I'm going to fold it over and press it both directions just to put a crease in it. Okay, I even used starch so that you could really see that, so it's a little exaggerated, because we have to clip this block just a little bit bigger on the outside edge so that we have a 1/4 inch seam allowance, so that when we go to sew everything up, we end up with a perfect point. So sometimes it gets to be confusing as to where to put this. So the easiest thing is to come up so that we're right on the edge here, so we have our 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then see the tip of this? This is right in the center. So we just want to make sure that this tip lines up right there with what we've pressed. So I'm going to sew this side first, open it up, then I'm going to put this one on, do the same thing, line up this edge, line that up right with the point, open it up. I am going to go ahead and give it a good press, which means I may have to repress that line right there, and then we do the same thing. What will happen though is you'll see that this will be out past that line. Line that up in the center, past that edge. Sew that one, and then sew this one and press that open. Okay, I thought I would just sort of show you the steps. So again, after you've sewn your first 2 on, I actually press this open. And once we've pressed that open, and I'll repress a little line in there so that I can line these up and sew those on, and it looks like this. And then we press it finally, and after we've pressed it, it's going to look kind of like this. So again, just like the others, it does look a little rat-tatty, and what you can do is you can go ahead and trim off all of these dog ears. You just want to make sure that it stays at 3.5 inches. And you might want to trim off some of that extra little stuff. There could be a little bit of stretch involved because we are sewing with the bias. But again, just don't go too crazy because you need this 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around to make sure that when you sew this together, everything ends up on point. So I would trim this up the same way. Take my little 3.5 and lay this block out, and I would do that same thing, just kind of watch and trim my sides and my top. Turn it, trim my side and my top. So I'm going to finish piecing all of these, square all of these up, put all of them down, and then we'll be ready to sew our 9 patch together. All right, there they are. So we've got our center square, our square and a squares on the outside edge, and then our 1/4 square triangle blocks here. What you're going to do is, of course, sew everything together for your little 9 patch. So this row together, this row, press it, and you're all good to go. And I just want to show you that just like with the other blocks, in all of the others, we have our little block sashing. She has you cut that, I think it's 1.5 inches, and we just keep suggesting that you cut those strips 2 inches so that if you just need a little bit of coping room because maybe your block ended up a little smaller than it should have, it just gives you that opportunity to kind of fix that a little bit. I'm anxious to see how ours will look since we have all of our mixed backgrounds going on. Some are a little darker than others, so I'm excited to see that. So this was our block in the kit colors, and next in 2 weeks we're going to do our block number 6, but I also want to mention that I'm also going to be talking to you about all of these little 9 patches. There's a whole bunch of these to be making because we're going to put those together. That's what's going to help with all of our setting blocks. So we'll mention sort of a twofer that we're going to do in 2 weeks. So until then, get peacin'.
Thank you for watching our video. We invite you to leave a comment, hit the like button, or better yet, subscribe to our channel so you never miss an episode. You can also visit our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or Pinterest pages, or find all of those things and our online store at fabricpatch.net.